The earthquake in Haiti has been truly horrifying, and governments and agencies around the world have been pledging aid. But sometimes the administration of that aid is a bit more complicated and more problematic than the tragedy itself, be it money or medical supplies. INSEAD Social Innovation Center leaders have been keeping tabs on the situation in Haiti, and they're joining us here today. Professor Luc van Wassenhove, thanks for being with us. And Group Manager Rolando Tomasini. Thank you both. I know you've been glued to monitors ever since this happened, so thanks for being here. Luc, let me start just by asking you, what are you actually observing? What are you hoping to be able to add to this?
I think that one has to realize, and many people don't, that it is normal that you have a complete chaos after such a thing, right? Everything is destroyed. It is already a country with a lot of poverty and very little infrastructure. So, you know, if everything in such a small place, a city basically, with 2 million people, if everything is concentrated there, it's going to be chaos. So the chaos is not the problem. The problem will be if we cannot, if the international help cannot start to organize the response after the 3 or 4 days of normal chaos. So this organization, we should start to see it.
Actually, it was our cameraman who pointed out that there seems to be a major hiccup with international help, as you've just indicated. That is it a question of people looking for glory? I mean, you've got the Brazilians in there, and you've got the U.S. in there, and you've got people with planes. I mean,
there has been a tendency, in spite of all the discussions and in spite of the rational that people understand that you need to coordinate, there has been a tendency recently again towards, you know, bilateral help. So the French run in, the Americans run in, the Brazilians, you know, the Spanish. And, well, if it's the first couple of days with dogs and rescues teams to save lives, that's fine. But again, if that continues, that's going to create major bottlenecks and duplication and all of that.
Have you found this, Rolando? You've been in touch with businesses and other people on the ground, too.
Absolutely, and I think what is different in this case scenario is that usually the coordination will be led by either the country teams, their own governments and their mechanisms, or the UN agencies that are present, that have the local expertise and can say, these are resources available, these are the needs, and this is how we move forward. The private sector can be a part of that coordination team as well. In the case of Haiti, none of those 3 teams or actors are actually in a position today to actually be taking that responsibility. The government is not in a position to coordinate, the UN is in a very weak situation as well, and the private sector as well. So what the private sector is asking themselves today is, how can we help? And that's a question not only about punctuality right now, delivering, which in this case for the most part is cash for what is needed, but it's also how do you sustain the help over time. In our research, we have documented numerous cases of disasters where the private sector has contributed. And ironically, one of the things that they find is sometimes that if you arrive too early, you can actually cause bottlenecks. Sometimes it's best to, which some of the companies that we're in contact with are actually waiting 1 or 2 days to find out what is exactly needed, where can they do it, and how to deliver. So it's not so much a race about getting your staff on the first plane out, but it's more so making sure that when you're there, you're adding the most value.
You know, part of this, we've all talked a little bit about, this is a chance for Haiti to rebuild itself. It's unfortunate these circumstances are those that created that possibility. But at the risk of sounding terribly mercenary, it's probably not a bad time for businesses to look to, after that rebuilding, to gain a chunk of business from a newly refreshed company. Or am I being horribly mercenary in that?
It's an interesting case where traditionally nation-building efforts are combined with humanitarian relief when there's a conflict zone. In this case, the natural disaster has exacerbated all the different vulnerabilities and all the different precarious conditions that were in Haiti before. So now yes, it is an open invitation. We'll hope that some of the diplomatic talks and conferences that are being planned at this point will provide help in that direction.
Well, you can be optimistic, and I think we should be. This is what one would hope would happen. But it would take, again, you know, coordination and agreement. And you see the tendency towards bilateral help. Or you could be pessimistic and say, you know, we had a big financial crisis. The public put in a lot of money to save the banks. Did that change anything? I mean,
what is your biggest concern? You keep talking about the bottlenecks and things. Is that basically it? I mean, what do you think the biggest hurdle is here in Haiti?
Well, I think that what Rolando was saying is crucial. And we saw it also with the tsunami. If everybody starts sending stuff and you only have one airport and it only operates partially, you're going to create a huge bottleneck in no time, and everything will come to a grinding halt. So I think what one would need is some sort of an organization that would be accepted to coordinate this. I mean, what is most urgent? What is the sequence in which we let these planes come in? How will we deal with the stuff? How will we distribute it? But nobody wants to be coordinated. Everybody wants to do his or her own thing, and that's a problem. But again, the first couple of days will be chaotic. You need to, in the first place, try to save as many lives as possible and help the wounded. And that again is a problem there because, transportation is not really there, infrastructure is not there, hospitals and doctors are not there. So hopefully they can bring in some stuff with smaller ships rather than use the airport. Then, after a couple of days, what you really want to do is you want to give people some basic support. Give them some food, give them some shelter, give them some clean water, etc. And then, after a week or so, you can start really doing the response in a coordinated, hopefully, way. And so, we're going through those phases. And I think it is very important. What I'm often irritated by is that it's so easy for the press to charter a helicopter after 2 days and to say, look, nobody's done anything, look at these poor people. But they forget that with the tsunami, the limitation, the scarce resources of helicopters and 4x4s, that it was the press and the VIPs wanted to show their faces there, who took 25 to 30% of those scarce resources and created part of the bottleneck. And that's what we're tracking. How's it going?
So, how is it going? Is there any sign of organization on the ground? I mean, Luke would like to set up a whole thing here.
It's very challenging. It's very, very challenging. I mean, when we see the images that are, as of today, on the third day of the earthquake are taking place, as people are using the airport, which is already a very small airport that is functioning with a small runway to accept 3 times, even not more, the capacity that it should be taking, and the surrounding grounds are acting as camping grounds for the humanitarian aid. A small, relatively easy trip could take up to 3 or 4 hours under harsh security conditions to reach the population. But the important thing is, I mean, we've been tracking over the past 10 years a lot of these cases. In fact, earthquakes, we've noted in our case studies that there is a trend in the way that the response carries on, and we'll see it that there is chaos at this point. But eventually, in the next few weeks, we'll need to have greater visibility of what has come into the country, and that is the risk today of not getting coordination on time. Knowing, instead of having this bilateral support coming in, being able to say what is in the pipeline of the country, how much aid has come in, because there will be cash that will need to be allocated to procurement, to purchasing the new things that will be needed for the people. How do we make sure that aid is prioritized? There are limited resources, so we want to prioritize those as well. So getting that visibility is extremely challenging, but necessary.
How is the money being handled? Do you have any clues as to who's doing that and how?
At this point, to the best of my knowledge, I cannot comment on that one.
Probably it hasn't arrived yet anyway, most likely. We should point out that both you and Luke have written Humanitarian Logistics, which is essentially what we've been talking about, and it's published by?
Palgrave.
Palgrave, okay. And this is something that you folks have been really working on for about a decade.
Yeah. Right.
So it's,
we started to work 10 years ago almost with, I think we started with the Red Cross. To look at logistics, specifically response, so what we're seeing today in Haiti. And then we realized very quickly that response can only be as good as the preparation that was made to do the response. For instance,
in
lots
Haiti,
of...
do you think there was any?
Oh
nothing
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
In advance?
There's lots of goods that were pre-positioned. There's, in Panama, there's a big logistical center where a lot of goods are pre-positioned, and so one can deploy relatively quickly from, and start distributing much better than 5 or 10 years ago. So this whole preparation and humanitarian logistics and how to build these competencies to be able to respond better and faster has gone through, you know, a revolution in terms of being much better now than 10 years ago.
Were there things on the ground that were already prepared? Haiti is such a poor country.
Yes, it is a poor country, but there were a lot of developmental programs going on at the same time. I mean, the silver lining, the very thin silver lining on this cloud is that Haiti is in a cyclical disaster area that is very well prepared. I mean, usually response to disasters in the area are above average in that sense. There are numerous set of factors that we have looked to our research that create that environment, especially for earthquakes and hurricanes. That said, you know, given that, you know, there was preposition aid, that there is the know-how and the logistical capacity in the surroundings, and especially the political support and willingness of the neighboring countries, the challenge remains last mile distribution. And that's what we're seeing on TV. That's the images we're seeing. That's really what we're going to be facing here. How do we make sure that we get to the right people, that we prioritize the people, that we prioritize the needs that we use to those people, and the means to get to them? That is extremely challenging. And no matter how well prepared you're in the region,
yeah, you have to come back to one thing, which is what you pointed out, is there is a need for trying to mitigate the impact of a disaster. And you know, in a poor country with poorly constructed buildings and buildings constructed in areas where you can have landslides and what have you, you have a problem to start with, right? Because the upfront, this is hopefully the chance in the reconstruction that one doesn't make the same mistakes. And then you have to realize that this is one of these disasters that are really out of the normal scale. It's huge and it's on a very small area. So it makes it very difficult, right? And it affects 2 million people, or 3 million people that are living there. So, I mean, these huge disasters, no matter how well prepared you are still going to be extremely difficult to deal with.
Yeah, we're in close contact with some of the organizations that we have done research in the past, private companies as well, and our hope is that we can make available that knowledge to them and to others over the next few months to support their efforts. I know we'll be having the opportunity to meet with some of them in the future as well to revise what they have and better understand what they are doing at this point, and hopefully contribute in the long term, perhaps not for the benefit of Haiti, but in the long term to the improvement of humanitarian logistics.
And I hope you'll come back and talk to us as the next days and weeks roll by and tell
Can
us
I
what
add one
you've
more thing?
found out. Okay.
I think it's important. Last time with the tsunami, there was too much goodwill. And people started to create their own NGOs and to send their own containers. And if you start doing that in Haiti, you're going to create even more chaos. So if the people want to help, the best thing to do at this point in time, just give your money to a well-organized, you know, humanitarian organization. You know, if you like Médecins Sans Frontières, that's fine. Prefer the Red Cross, that's fine. Prefer the World Food Program, that's fine. These people know their job. Don't go in.
Good advice. Thank you very much,
Pleasure.
Wassenhove and Rolando Tomasini, for
Thank
being
you.
with us on INSEAD Knowledge. And we'll see you again soon.